What do you guys think about the evolution of the creative process? So we saw early on how he was creating music and how he was hustling to get features and stuff with College Dropout and the stuff that he was doing in the studio and how he was working. Um, I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that his music has become increasingly more polarizing as the years have gone on. If you look at the way he does music, it's like he's doing music that's very kind of spur of the moment. He's living in the moment. It's very there doesn't seem to be like direction or organization necessarily. It seems like it's
He's on the
just
plane and he has a thought. He's in his phone and he's saying the bars mad loud to get the emotion.
well, it's not
out.
even that. Like, I mean, I think that's
Even shit like
typical of
that.
a lot of artists. Like, creatives get thoughts out. Like, they'll do that. But I'm more so talking about like, it's like he went from being some guy who was a perfectionist. Think about that. Hey Mama was recorded in the year 2000. He mentioned on that clip from the Oprah show. He sat on these records and perfected these records. Some of those verses that he spit in those studio sessions were verses that ended up being a College Dropout, like the mayonnaise color bends, I push miracle whips. That was a part of that rhyme where he was with Rhymefest rhyming in the studio.
Yeah.
He had that line, but he added it to the Last Call song. So like, I say that to say, like, I think there is something to the fact that his music, in some ways, even though I can still appreciate it as a fan, and I think he still has beautiful moments musically, I think there's something to the fact in the way that he creates now and stuff that is different in his approach. And I think it comes out in the rollout of some of these projects where it's like very seat of the pants all over the place. It's kind of very disorienting. And I think there is more of an emphasis on the performance art of whatever he's doing and less of an emphasis on the actual music that's coming out in a weird way.
I mean, I could agree with you. I've seen it with, like, certain projects, but Donda I thought was really good. Like, not to say it wasn't perfected. I mean, it was perfected because it wasn't. Because I don't think he'll ever be able to do that shit again. Like, just sit on a record for years and perfect it.
I think he could, but I don't think he cares to because that's not the objective anymore. The objective changed, and that's
I
kind of
feel
my
you.
point.
And like you said, it's the spur of the moment. Like, he's living it and he wants it out there.
Right.
You know.
Which
So
which gets to what I was gonna say. That video clip. I want you to play that video clip. If you could share it, because I think it kind of ties into this kind of conversation.
can you make it full screen?
Dark fantasy. So many people rate, dark
Think if I make it
fantasy
full
as like
screen,
one of the
it'll-
best
Oh no,
albums.
it's good like that.
And so many people rate, dark fantasy as like one of the best albums. And Yeezus and 808s are so much better and stronger. Dark fantasy is me almost like an apology record. Like, Power was the least progressive song that I ever had as a first single. And it was like this, me going back and spending 6, months, dedicated months. It was like over 2 years that it took to release the album, but 6 dedicated months, and kind of piecing together what people liked about me to make an entire bouquet that they loved, that was the most listenable, that was the least challenging, that was that, and blah, blah, blah. And people want to talk about how much they love that, like it was Thanksgiving dinner. And, how long has Thanksgiving dinner been cooked for? And it's great. You don't want anybody to change anything on Thanksgiving dinner. But, you take 808s or Yeezus, where these albums got completely, panned when they came out. And then you see how they end up influencing things. So it's that balance of doing something that's sort of just gives you a blanket of, comfortability for the listeners and for yourself, that you can, go on tour and do this and walk around, and everybody, thinks it's so great and they're really happy you did something that they like. And then you got the times where you have to just, give them what you see as your future, give them your innovation.
And having a family that gives you more motivation.
I get what he's saying with that. I completely get what he's saying with that, and the tie is definitely perfect. Like,
I get what he's saying, but I completely fucking disagree, and I wish I was in the same room with him to kind of talk about that further. Because I don't
what do you
think
mean you disagree?
my dark, I don't think my Dark Twisted Beautiful Fantasy is at all not challenging at all. Like, from musically, I think is one of his best produced albums. Now, I will say it had a lot
he's
of
saying like, I do that, I can do that,
Yes.
no matter what.
Yes,
You know what I mean? And
That's
so
a
I get
layup
what
for
he
him.
means when he says 808s and Yeezus was definitely totally different.
Yeah, well,
and
just like
ended up influencing.
yeah, well, just
in a
like
different
Eric
way.
said last week, like he even compared Yeezus to 808s and said that you thought they were very similar in terms of objective, right? And I agree. Like, those are the ones he really like was kind of like changing it up and switching it up and trying something different
Push the
and trying
envelope.
to perfect it. Exactly. So I think that's the difference, I would say.
The tweet is interesting too. It was a response to that video. So I think it was John Wexler. So John Wexler was an executive at Adidas. He also worked for Yeezy for a little bit. And he says, to me, this is him articulating the difference between the art he makes versus everyone else. In 2012, I told him I didn't like 808s, but it became my favorite album of his 3 months later. His reply, oh, you're going to hate Yeezus even more before you'll love it then. And he says, true story.
Wow.
Yeah, so like, I think his objective creatively, is different. He wants to push the envelope, and I feel like Pablo was the first project of his in a long line of projects. You're seeing it every time he releases a project, where you're getting something that is happening in real time.
Yeah.
The release date doesn't matter. He is adding songs to the projects, taking stuff off, taking verses off, editing verses, taking people off songs, adding them on songs, putting new mixes. You're seeing that even with Donda too. The people who got the stem player, from what I understand, don't even have the full album. I think they have a couple songs from the album, and it's not even the mix that Nori has been riding around to, what he called a Mike Dean mix of the project that's supposed to be different than what people have. So like, it kind of goes to show, like,
And no, he's not
he's
sharing
breaking
it.
every conventional rule, that's out there of how you release stuff, which is kind of dope in a way, because he is being somebody who is like a trailblazer, as he's always been, and somebody's gonna come on his heels and perfect this kind of rollout.
Yeah,
Where he's the guinea pig, like he's like throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks.
facts.
I
love it though.
What's
One of the most influential influencer of all time, the greatest hip hop run of all time,
the greatest hip hop artist.
concert set designs of all time,
He's the greatest hip hop artist of all time.
greatest artist.
I wouldn't
Hip-hop
say
artist.
rapper. That's a different discussion. But overall artist, I think he's the greatest hip hop artist.
And one of the most influential artists general of our time. No matter the genre.